new to relate it to the current environment. So yeah, I would say back then most Bitcoiners were interested in hearing sort of what was out there, and they were not convinced perhaps that Monero was really the solution. And I don't know if I was to the full extent then, right? Surely as Monero's grown, people feel more confident in it than they did in early 2017, right? So it was, people certainly were open to the idea of hearing about it, even though they didn't know what to think about it, but they were interested in showing up and having a discussion and seeing what someone would say. Did anyone else give like old, ideally before 2017, the hype of 2017, but had anyone else given some talks or whatever about Monero, or even to Bitcoin crowds, or really of anything back, a few years before you had, significantly more activity on these projects? I'd be curious to know. You can even raise your hand. We're down to fewer speakers now. So if you do have like a really good story you want to share, and we can invite you on stage even for a bit.
Yeah, I used to talk about at both meetups and local conferences, and I agree that people used to be a lot more receptive, and it just seemed to me like there was a completely different crowd back then, because everyone would get together and we would learn, and we would question things and debate different technical aspects of different projects. Whereas now it's more, we had price focus back then too, but not as intensely as we do now. That's just how I feel.
I think part of it was just throughout 2017, you just got so much nonsense about like Bitcoin's bad because we reduced this block because it's worse than this coin that has a 9-minute block time, or Bitcoin's bad because we did this very minor thing. You had just such utter garbage that was being pushed. I think I can see why, at least throughout the 2017 rise, why some of the original Bitcoiners, let's say those who had been in Bitcoin before 2017, or the rise in 2017, I don't even know if that's fair to call an original Bitcoiner at this point, but compared to the size of the community now, maybe. But I can see why that would push people in the direction of like, just everything else is just utter garbage. And so I hope that the people I had conversations with when I was in Europe were more open to thinking about Monero. But even those who do know better are often saying very, very divisive things, and are very much trying to throw Monero under the bus, for example, like, oh, nothing's decentralized except Bitcoin, for example. And you're like, well, have you thought about Monero? And then they just don't answer the question. So like, so be it. That's the way it is, I guess. As far as I can tell, nobody has asked for an invite. I'm not sure if that's just my end acting up or what, but I don't see anybody that's asked to go on stage. But people are certainly welcome to, if they have a personal story they'd like to share, or a good question even. Otherwise, they can ask the question with sending the tweet to hashtag Monero Space, or including the hashtag Monero Space.
Here, I've got a question, and I wish I would have asked this when Howard was here, but how centralizing is RandomX? Obviously, with Bitcoin's proof of work, you just need to grab yourself a bunch of ASICs. Is it possible to just get a bunch of laptops and putting them together and have some sort of similar centralizing effect from that?
Jabrick, you want to try to take this
one?
Yeah,
I was going to say, for the most part, no. I mean, the whole objective of RandomX was essentially to get back to this philosophy that Satoshi had of one CPU, one vote. So really the problem of ASICs is really the distribution of ASICs and the process that it takes to get those types of devices. And the idea was that if you could mine using your mobile phone, if you could mine using any type of CPU that was available, and there wasn't a let's say there wasn't an efficient way or a costly efficient way to develop any type of device that could hash better than what you could using a CPU. So let's just consider like research, the amount of research R&D that's required to develop these types of systems, the amount of added hash rate that you would get for developing an ASIC, even if it was possible, for the most part, wouldn't be significant enough. So it really just it disincentivizes you to want to do something like building an ASIC. So really, it is more decentralized in that case. That was really the goal when we brought RandomX up. And I don't know if you could find any literature on it, but back then there was a lot of discussion about, or really just debate between people that were, miners and these individuals like Howard that were working on bringing RandomX into it. A lot of the miners were very protective because they had invested a significant amount of funds into these Vega 56s, Vega 64s. I mean, I myself had like 20, 30 of them. And I remember like switching. It was a day where you were like, oh shit, I need to figure out, like, I'm going to go switch to something else, because philosophically we understood that RandomX was a more decentralized system. And if I recall, Justin can correct me on this, but it was pretty much our last shot or our last attempt at developing a system of proof of work, a consensus algorithm that could really fight against this idea of like generating or creating a specialized unit such as an ASIC. So I would say it's definitely more decentralized, but we'll see how that continues on as time goes on.
Awesome, thank you.
I don't know if you were on when we had this similar discussion, but when people talk about whether Monero or Bitcoin is more decentralized, I think at that point you're kind of having like a philosophical discussion. Like you're going to talk in circles and you're going to have like, yeah, this or oh, that. And at the end of the day, people don't really know. They're just kind of like throwing stuff in there, and it's hard to verify. You're not comparing apples to apples. You're trying to compare a bunch of stuff, and it's really messy. So in my mind, I like to think actually both of them at the moment, at least, are quite decentralized. I mean, obviously, I'm concerned about some of the compliance threats to Bitcoin, but I wouldn't say that it's like, I wouldn't dismiss it the way some people would Monero, be like, it's just shitcoin. Like, I wouldn't say, Bitcoin's a centralized shitcoin. Like, I wouldn't say something like that. So, it's I feel like it's a philosophical discussion when you get to be like, what's more decentralized? But one thing that I would say is, like, when Monero did have all the discussions about what it would do with its proof of work algo, like, this is a really heated discussion in the Monero community. We ultimately were able to settle everything out and go with RandomX, but there certainly were voices that thought this was a bad idea. Fluffy Pony was one of them. He was, he didn't abuse his power in any way. I'm not suggesting that at all, but he did not think that this is a good choice. He wanted us to move to SHA-3, for example. And so, despite his contrarianism on that point, the vast majority of Monero's community decided, hey, we actually want to go this route. We think it's a good choice. We think it's worth taking an extra final straw or final attempt, so to speak, at making CPUs competitive. And that did piss some people off. I mean, the GPU miners that were mining Monero at the time largely understood why we were doing it and were okay by it, sort of like in the position where Deverick was. But certainly some people did not like it at all. They were very, very angry. And ultimately, they just had to switch to mine Ethereum. That's just kind of the way it was, right? And I think now, at the time that decision was made too, a lot of people, and not just the Bitcoin community, but really like all different walks of life within cryptocurrencies, you had a few people, I would say, you had a few people that thought it was a good idea, but it wasn't like an obvious, this is the right thing to do. You had quite a few people. You had like David Vorwick, I think is his last name, in the Saya community that wrote this whole thing about how doing this whole ASIC launch is probably better. And then you had Fluffy Pony himself say things the lines of Monero going forward with RandomX and committing to CPUs has really damaged Monero's reputation, for example, and people really, like, a lot of people really thought this was the wrong choice at the time. And but it was obvious that after all the discussions we had, people were like, yeah, we want to commit to this. And I think this, what is it? We're almost, well, by the end of this year, it would have been 2 years of RandomX and Monero. Like, sure, it's still to some extent too early to say for sure, but it seems so far up to this point, everything has been quite positive. There hasn't been a catastrophic situation. Maybe it might happen in the future in theory, but like, this does seem to be a bit of an like non-news, you know what I mean? Like, everything has kind of worked and there haven't been any gotchas yet. And I think that, people can still very much mine with CPUs. We haven't seen widespread ASICs on the market or anything. I think we can call it a success at the moment, but at the time, there were a lot of people that thought Monero was doing this wrong.
So what were some of the reasons, Justin, that the people that were opposing RandomX, what were some of their arguments?
Sure. So I'll answer yours, Vic, first, and then Giannica, I want obviously want to hear you say too. But
I'm sure.
So Vic, all of this luckily is like totally public. So it is a long series of reads, right? Like it's like 3 GitHub issues or whatever there that are like several hundred comments deep based off people's opinions. It is several meetings, some of which were hours long on IRC that we have logs for. It wasn't among decisions that the Monero community has had to make. It is one of the most complicated ones that we've ever had to make, which is ironic. We would back when Monero added ring CT, right? Like, oh, let's just 10x the size of our transactions. And everyone's like, yep, makes sense given the advantages. And it just went through, right? Like, no one really complained. But when it comes like RandomX, that was certainly a more heated thing. So I guess the argument, a lot of people truly think that ASICs are inevitable. I'm not really one that fits in that boat because I know that the way I see it, there's a lot of different incentives at play as to why you would want to mine with certain hardware or what's realistic, what you can get your hands on. The fact that you have the flexibility of not mining. Like if you buy Bitcoin miners, right, you pretty much can only mine Bitcoin with them. You don't have the option to sell them for something else, right? No one else is going to buy it if Bitcoin isn't worth anything. So when you mine with CPU hardware, for example, you have the option of using it for something else. That option, in my view, has value. And so the flexibility has value. And so what I'm trying to, I guess, get at is like in real life, it's more than just I can make a chip that's 1% more effective or efficient or whatever. It's more complicated. So I would say the main pushbacks, they thought the 2 main ones, sorry to answer your question directly. One, they thought Monero was wasting its time. They thought nothing else that Monero has done with tweaking CryptoNight has really worked that well. CryptoNight R actually did seem to kind of work, but no one would want to die on that being implemented for a while, let's just say. No one felt really comfortable with that being a long-term solution. And then, so they thought Monero was wasting its time and would inevitably just have to have another hard fork in the future when ASICs inevitably came on the network, in their view. And the second point is they still kind of thought it as a point of centralization, right? There was a lot of mantra at the time about how Monero is super centralized because you have these devs that just all come in and hard fork the network willy-nilly to take these miners off the network, yada, 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 all those sorts of Monero centralized because hard forks and because these are big changes and the like. And so, yeah, that definitely was an argument that people still kind of make till today, but we are not doing that anymore. And I guess maybe the third thing is that people were concerned about just the fragility of the community's resilience if this didn't work out, right? If RandomX didn't work and Monero had to, in short order, switch to SHA-3, for example, that people probably would have just lost a lot of motivation, perhaps, and it would have caused pretty significant community stress. I remember at my time, like when I was doing all the like those conversations are really draining when you're having them constantly and you're having to like sit through like hours of meetings a week about like through chat with people that you don't even know in order to make your point and to really hear all the evidence that people have. Like it's a difficult process. And so when you have people talk about not wanting to hard fork Monero every 6 months anymore, when the community gets large, it takes more and more effort to handle these, different opinions and make sure you're doing everything right. And I guess people were potentially concerned that if Monero made the wrong decision then, they would be committing effectively to an extra horrible experience later. So hopefully that answered your question. And hopefully I'm not missing anything. If I miss anything, by all means, let me know. And yeah.
No, Justin, I thought that was very thorough. Yeah, and it's one thing that a lot of people don't know or realize is that Fluffy Pony was against RandomX. So the idea of the centralization of Monero's development and a small group of people control it. The guy who is sort of considered to be the leading Monero figure was against a certain change in Monero that actually went through. So that actually goes to show you that the process works and ideas do get through, and it's not a one-man show by any stretch of the But and that's not to knock Fluffy Pony. There's other things that other times when there have been disagreements, and the arguments are always weighed by their merit, I think, and not by the reputation of the person proposing a certain change. So that's really, that was the lesson for me in that whole discussion. So that was actually encouraging for me to see that. And to go back to Tyler's question about our CPUs as a force of centralization, I think the way I look at it is, anytime when you discover a way to mint money, let's say it's a gold mine or whatever it is, people are going to want to take advantage of that to the maximum extent possible, right? So everyone's going to want to participate, and those participating are going to want to participate to as high of a degree as possible, right? So centralization is there by nature in any sort of endeavor. And the way you fight centralization is you give access to as many people as possible to take a stab at that, gold mine, to try and mine that block and so on. And that's what CPU mining does, is just by the fact of CPUs being so much more abundant than ASICs, it just makes it intrinsically more decentralized than an ASIC that's produced by a certain factory in a certain province in China, where you have to find someone on Telegram who might ship it to you, 6 months late, and it's already been used and it's already out of date, and they got the new ASIC coming out. So that completely it just evens the field. That's what CPU mining does, and that's why it was so important to so many people that we continue that fight, even though we had lost a few battles, but that didn't stop us from trying again. And this novel idea of RandomX seems to have worked out pretty well so far. Anyway, I have to duck out, guys. It's been a pleasure. Justin, if you're still running a couple hours from now, I might join you again. But
I might be. It's about 50-50. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's been a pleasure. Take care, guys.
Yep, thanks, Janik. I want to say it is now the time of evening that I have finally broken open the bottle of wine. It is some Portuguese red blend that I was gifted by my parents. So I don't know anything about it. I did not choose it, but we shall see how it is. So let me just open that up real quick, and hopefully everyone else is enjoying their evening or whatever it might be, wherever you are.
Enjoy, Justin. If anyone else wants to join from Monero fam, feel free to just press on that request button. We are.
Yeah, I just promoted someone, Moses. Hey, Moses, how are you?
Hello, Moses.
Moses, are you able to talk? It says on one of my ends, at least, that you're a speaker. Doug, I can promote you to a speaker. One second, I'm getting some more regulatory questions like.
Yeah, what's the Monero hashtag again if they have questions, just for people new in the audience?
Monero space, hashtag Monero space.
There we go.
We did have a question that came in like about 20 minutes ago now. It said, what are your thoughts on Mimblewimble and its upcoming integration into Litecoin? Does anyone have any particular thoughts there?
As I understand that, it's actually from Doug's show, and what's his name? Charlie Lee was on Doug's show. As I understand, it's kind of like almost like a parallel Lightning channel. So once you load up that channel with your Litecoin, only in that channel you get privacy. That's what I understood.
Yeah,
Mimblewimble has no addresses, so it's kind of interesting what they do with the DeFi space as well. But it's obviously not as private as Monero. That's what my understanding.
Yeah, it's sort of like you can almost think of it like a separate pool. I mean, that's obviously really simplifying things, but it's to some extent you can think of it as like you got your normal Litecoin, and then you got this special sort of Litecoin that's on the Mimblewimble tech. And when you're in the Mimblewimble tech, it includes confidential transactions. So that means exclusively that the amounts are hidden. In that case, it doesn't hide anything else. But it is on Mimblewimble, not just CT. So that means you also have a similar effect to stealth addresses in Monero. I mean, it's not a perfect comparison, but you can think kinda there are stealth addresses in the effect of what privacy you get out of it. But you have very weak transaction graph privacy. So it's like very broadly, you can think Monero without ring signatures. That is definitely oversimplified, but for the sake of just a broad call here or whatever, it's fine. So it is certainly good from the sake of Monero to be adding this. For Litecoin to be adding this, in my opinion, because it sort of confirms that, like, hey, we have this other project that is larger than Monero and is interested in adding privacy features, so we can use that to our benefit. But it it really isn't quite the same, but it's still interesting.
I think James had a question. He was raising his hand.
Yeah, I just tried to he sent me a DM saying he sent a request. Now, I did not see it on my end, but I just sent him a DM with some joining details. Hopefully he'll pop on as a speaker. He's been a speaker in some of the previous chats that we've done, or this previous spaces I've done. So if you sent a request to join and like you didn't hear from me, you can send me a DM and then we can sort it out so that I can add people because this seems to have a bunch of bugs. So James, you're a speaker. Welcome, James.
Hey, hello everybody.
Thanks for the DM. Sorry, didn't purposely ignore you. I just didn't get the message.
It's okay. I was trying for a while. I just wanted to ask a question about. I was actually hoping that Gionic was still there, but maybe Devrick would have some input on it. So it was a question just regarding the ASIC mining versus the CPU stuff. And on Douglas's show, I can't remember the guy that he was talking to. It was kind of like an arrogant white guy with glasses. I can't really remember what his name was, but he was very dismissive of Howard as well, and kind of Random X, even though he didn't know that much about it seemed. And he was basically saying, and Doug, you can correct me if I'm wrong, or anyone who saw that one, but he was basically saying something along the lines of CPUs can just be overtaken by ASIC at any time. So, for example, if people are running Monero on CPUs, then all it takes is someone to develop an ASIC, and then all of a sudden that's going to basically destroy the whole network. That was my understanding. I was just wondering if anyone could speak to that.
I can take this one. So I believe, so essentially what he's referring to is the idea, and he kind of said it in that talk. I can't remember his name either. But the idea is that you can always create circuitry. Let's just take it on a physical aspect. It's like your mobile phone. You can, as time goes on, we have smaller and smaller chip designs, and you can always find ways to create more efficient circuitry. So what he was kind of talking about was just even the placement of chips on the board reduces the amount of latency that can occur whenever you're doing computations between, you know, one part of the chip and another, or one chip and another chip. So the idea in general is that, and I kind of said this a little bit earlier, it's the idea of whether you're willing to put in the amount of money into the R&D in order to develop out one of these circuits or one of these devices. And then even if you do, what you're really building is essentially a general purpose machine. It can be, so the thing is, there's not just there's a scale here. There's not just CPUs, general purpose machines, and then it just jumps to ASICs. There's like a whole layer of what you can get in between before you get to a general purpose, before you get to an ASIC. So the idea is really just that when it comes to R&D, someone's not really incentivized to put so much money into developing it, because you won't get so much of an advantage just due to circuitry design and things like that. There's just no, as of right now, there's no advantage that we know of to doing it.
Thanks. So Sal just DM'd me and he said the guy's name was Peter Todd.
Exactly.
For anyone who wants to watch that one.
Yeah, it was Peter Todd.
So then, and then just to clarify or to keep going on that one. So hypothetically, so if it was like how you guys were saying, you know, one CPU, one vote, and all of everyone's cell phones, let's say the hardware was good enough where everyone's cell phones now we can use as miners, and that's, you know, everyone's got their own mining rig in their pocket basically. Would it be possible then, hypothetically, is if someone was able to then make some sort of an ASIC mining thing to take over, like would it be able to basically break that network of CPU is kind of what I'm asking.
Yeah, so you're really talking about, I mean, honestly, like I said, there's a whole line between ASIC and general purpose CPUs. And when you're talking about like building a general purpose machine, there are ways to do this. And this is where I do kind of agree with what Peter Todd was saying there. You can always develop a machine that can be more efficient. Again, I just think it's an R&D type of situation, because he also mentioned in that talk that one of his refutes was, well, once you develop out this system, you no longer need to put any more R&D in there, but eventually it gets released out into the wild, and someone else duplicates it, manufactures it for cheaper, and then eventually it just becomes one of the systems that gets used. I don't envision this right now, but I just can't comment enough, just because it's kind of speculation, I think, at this point.
Okay, thanks. This is a good answer. Totally answered my question. I was just wondering because he seemed like such a dick and he was so sure of himself, and I just wanted to know what you guys' thoughts were.
Yeah, I mean, he's way smarter than I am, but I be honest, I am of the same, like, I have the same ideals or the same kind of like concept of this, where you can build a more specialized device. It's just whether you're willing to put in the money to do it, and whether once you do it, it's actually going to be to your advantage, just due to normal development with Intel and everyone else out there. Like, all of that technology also continues to grow. So after you put all that R&D in, you know, what's the next CPU that's going to come out, and are you going to be able to beat that, or do you need to go R&D again? It's just really what, you know, how more efficient are you going to become, and that requires a lot of research.
Got it. Thank you.
I don't think it's impossible, though.
Regarding Peter Todd, we're trying to get him back on with Howard Chu at the same time, so that should be an interesting show. And yeah, he may have sounded like, you know, he certainly sounds overconfident, but he's the type of guy who deserves to be overconfident. So, you know, definitely listen when he speaks. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, I think he has his Bitcoin bag, so he's not being completely fair in that regard. But we'll see when he's talking with Howard Chu what road that leads them down. I'd be really interested to see that conversation. Ironically, Peter is I would say, kind of like the guy who got me most excited about Monero in the early days. He was talking about Monero, back in the day when it was, I don't know, like $1 or less. And he was one of the first ones, at least that I've listened to, that was really talking, Bitcoiners that were talking about Monero in a seemingly positive way.
Hi, guys. I just got added. My name's Ben here. I'd like to comment something on the previous question. I don't mean to be shut your idea down, but imagining that everybody's phone would be equivalent to sort of one vote is really unrealistic, because your phone is always going to be power limited compared to a desktop. So even 1,000 years, the phones will always be weaker than the desktops. That's what I'm trying to say. And secondly, the way that everybody talks about making it more efficient, right? Like, from my understanding, the only more efficient thing that you could do would be to add that translation layer. So you've built a general purpose PC, but the instructions are directly, they're not x86 anymore, right? They're in the Monero, I forget the name of the hashing algorithm, but they're in that hashing algorithm's instruction set, right? And if you were to build such a Monero machine, you could literally take your x86 programs and then translate them into the Monero instructions and then run your code on the Monero miner, right? So it always will be a general purpose machine because it's so similar to an x86 or an ARM or whatever. And finally, if you want to try to compete with Intel or AMD in terms of making chips, or even ARM, like, the amount of R&D is ungodly. Like, how are you going to outcompete Intel? That's just like, I mean, maybe in 40 years, the chip market will look different. But as of today, the amount of I don't even know how many dollars it takes, but those machines are so expensive to do the ASIC manufacture. It's out of this world. So those are just some of my thoughts. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, but Ben, thanks for stopping in. I mean, I definitely agree with you with the whole, you can't just hand wave to be like, oh, someone will make it better. Someone will make a more efficient version. It's like, well, you know how much time and money that costs, and expertise. Like, you can't just roll up and be like, if I just think hard enough, I'll make a really good ASIC, right? For Monero. Like, good luck, right? Like, there's a whole bunch of real barriers in practice. And the point isn't to say that there's literally no way that you can make a Monero ASIC or a more competitive Monero machine, but the likelihood you're going to find it is lower than Intel will find it in their next release of their CPUs.
But if you did, you'd make more money selling general purpose computers than you would selling mining Monero.
Yeah, probably. That's a good point.
Right. And that's my point, is that even if, what's the name of the hashing algorithm again, or the instruction set?
RandomX.
Right. So your RandomX instruction set, because it's Turing complete, you can convert x86 into RandomX, you can convert ARM into RandomX, you can convert RISC-V into RandomX, like whatever you wanted to. So you've literally just made a general purpose compute that's instruction set is RandomX, not x86, right? And so, like the Apple M1s, right? They have Rosetta, right? When you buy an M1, you've got an ARM, but if you want to run the old x86 binaries, there's Rosetta, right? That's a translation layer. If you had your general purpose Monero RandomX ASIC, you could run a quote unquote Rosetta and then run your other programs on it. So I still think that you make more money just selling the chips, so.
Yeah, if you're able to make a truly, it very likely would be capable of doing quite a few other things too. So if you're capable of making a machine that's really better than anybody else's, like, the sea is far larger than just Monero, as you pointed out. I also want to thank Art. Welcome to the speaker box.
Hey, did you say Art?
I did. It says
okay.
Art.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, how else do you like? Do you want to go by Art, or how do you want to go?
Yeah, Art or Matt or anything's fine. I've already doxed myself enough on this. I mean, it might as well just be Matt at this point, probably.
Okay, sorry. I wasn't sure. Someone was like, "Hey, add this person," so I did. And I see your first name on Twitter is Art, so I'm gonna call you Art. I'm not gonna dox a bro on the Monero Twitter. You know what I mean?
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So, oh, looks like he already left. I wanted to give him a chance to do a quick intro too. But Art, do you want to give a quick intro, if you like?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks. So yeah, my name's Matt. I work with Chill pretty closely, and we've got the Open Economy Initiative, where we're just making some educational content around cryptocurrency, and obviously we love Monero, so we do a lot of Monero stuff. And yeah, you can find us on YouTube, Open Economy Initiative, and that's what we're primarily doing these days. And yeah, we're just excited to be here and looking forward to DevCon.
Oh yeah, I think we're all pretty stoked for that. Can I ask, for the Open Economy Initiative, is that monetized in any way, or is it just one of your ways to like give back and get some outreach?
Yeah, so we have a couple courses on Udemy, like how to buy Bitcoin. We call it the right way, which is just using like cybersecurity best practice. And so yeah, that does generate revenue. But all the content that we release and all that stuff is all free, just either on the website or on the YouTube channel. Yep.
Nice. What are your next events planned? Are they in the next few weeks? Are they?
Oh yeah. Actually, tomorrow we're doing a stream on. We've been getting a lot of questions from people like who want to form blockchain companies. And so Chill did Chill has this knowledge, but also did a bit of a dive into like incorporating companies, like either exchanges or projects or wallets, whatever, like kind of around the world, and what the regulatory stuff looks like for those different projects. And then I'm doing kind of the questions you want to ask yourself about tokenomics and developers and building out the tech. So that'll be tomorrow at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. And then yeah, that's the next big thing we have. But we have a good kind of catalog of interviews with people in the space, including yourself, that goes back there if you go over to the channel on YouTube.
Yeah, and then we have the Clubhouse call, obviously, the Monero Clubhouse call on Sunday. And for those of you who just joined, if you need invites, feel free to reach out to any of us. We have plenty of invites. It's at 7 p.m. CET and 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. So.
Well, nice. Yeah, thanks for being here, Matt. It's great to see you all the time. You and Chill do all the fun work. You're doing a great job. I'll have to visit you the next time in Denver or something.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, just a quick reminder for the room. If you do want to get on stage here, we have a few slots. So just request, we'll bring you up. If you request and are waiting a while, you can send me a DM and confirm that I actually did see it, because we're not getting all of them apparently. But yeah, we had a nice time talking about atomic swaps, and we also talked quite a bit about RandomX, which it's kind of interesting how like it's, to some extent, it has felt like a really long time since we've had this RandomX discussion, but I guess it also feels like it just happened to me, right? Like it's a bit of this weird period where it's Monero's recent past, and Monero's become its own thing and has changed a lot since it implemented RandomX. But I don't know, I guess I still remember having discussions on like whether we should bump the ring size to 11 or random or ring CT or whatever. But that was, that just shows how much Monero's changed over the years, if there's such a broad scope to the areas it has potentially covered. I see a few people in the chat too that we've seen before. Of course, thanks Leo, Onim, I don't know how to, XMR Halen for being in the comments. Great to see you here. We have black coffee. I'll have to try some of your. Wait, Vic, did you try that black coffee? And also, I want to be really clear: we are not sponsored by any single person or anything for this call. We're just trying to be friendly. Did you try their coffee yet?
Not yet, actually. It's in Florida, and I'm up here in New York right now. So when I get back next week, I'll give it a try.
Yeah, I think for balance, I have to give Doug a chance to show gratuitous now. Doug, please show gratuitous.
Nah, I shill too much, but yeah, if you guys need any coffee, go to gratuitous.org. I wanted to throw up the topic of dynamic blocks. I know you guys touched on it a little bit earlier, but my understanding is we recently saw them in action for the first time recently. Justin, I'd just love to hear your take on that. And has Arctic Mine chimed in on that? Has he spoken about that since we've seen it actually in action recently?
That's a really good question. I'll introduce the other two people in a second, or give them a chance in a second after I answer this question. But on Arctic Mine, I actually haven't talked with him specifically in a while. Yeah, I've obviously had quite a few discussions about block size with him, but not recently. So I would have to. I can't answer confidently on anything he said there because nothing comes to mind. But yes, if you go to a website like txstreet.com, which shows visually the Monero transactions going through, or you can be like a hacker and go to XMR chain like all the cool kids do, then you can see that there are quite a few transactions going through in Monero blocks. And in fact, they are often larger than the minimum size for Monero blocks. So yes, Monero blocks have exceeded the so-called original cap or whatever, however you would describe it, whatever the base cap is, they have brushed against this. So that means people are paying additional fees in order to sort of like bump up the size a bit. And I know Arctic Mine, had an ongoing proposal, which likely will be in whenever the next Monero hard fork is, to tweak the fee algorithm a little bit. But it, I mean, it's very on a very broad level. It's the same. But yeah, I think more than anything, it's just shown that Monero's use has become so significant the last month or so. Of course, it has been growing, but really the last month has been brushing against the limit where there are a lot of transactions going through at this point. So I think it's a testament to just how early Monero sort of tried to address this scalability problem where we're seeing blocks that are fitting more transactions than like the default would have been if we set a specific size Monero or whatever. It's pretty cool. I guess it's cool to see in action is the short answer. Is there anything else that you had on there, Doug, that you like wanted to get at?
No, I just wanted to hear your take on it, and yeah, I'm equally excited by that. I feel like obviously in the Monero community we talk about it, but once again, it's one of those things that if you were to talk to a BTC maxi about, most of them don't even know that Monero has dynamic block sizes, and now we're actually seeing them being used and they're working. So it seems like a breakthrough, and it's very exciting to see it working.
Nice. All right, let me welcome.
Happy Friday, everybody.
Welcome, Black Brew.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to quickly say I love and appreciate all of you guys. I learned so much from all of you, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for being a part of this community and letting me be a part of this community. And just like I said, I have nothing but love for you guys, and I'm just like gushing. I'm really excited to be here right now. So, and hope everybody's having a great week, and hope everybody has a great weekend.
Nice. I mean, it's great to see you around. I hope you didn't feel that there was anyone keeping you out, because it's great to have your activity here.
Well, I will say that Monero Twitter is much cooler than, say, Monero Reddit or Telegram.
So. You like our Twitter presence?
Oh, I love it. I love it. And what I really, really love is I love trolling the maxis. It's pretty fun for me.
Are you talking about the Monero maxis or other maxis?
Oh, the BTC maxis. No, you guys are sacred. That's why I said, like, I have nothing but love for you guys, and I believe this is a very, very special community in crypto, and not like helmet special, but just very, very special. And like I said, I just love and appreciate everybody in here. And we all have one common goal. It's just privacy and just kind of want to be left alone. And, you know, I value that very much.
Hey man, we have you coming on Monerotopia, right?
Doug, I am so excited, but hopefully I won't be too boring.
Nah, you already sound more exciting than me, so we're looking forward to having you.
Sorry
on.
about that. Got to turn the ringer off.
Maybe we could trade coffees too. We'll send you some gratuitous. You send us some of yours.
I would love
we can have
nothing
a
more.
blind tasting.
I would love nothing more. We can definitely do that, and we could definitely talk more about that later. And props to you, Doug. I see you out there, you know, in East New York, and just doing your thing. Nothing but mad respect, and you know, mad respect for you and your lady, just hustling like that. And major props.
Thank you, man. We have a good time doing it.
Yes, it's not even work if you love what you're doing. So, and I see it. So, very cool. But I don't want to take up the airspace here. I just quickly wanted to just get that off my chest. Like I said, I appreciate the Monero community, and you know, I think it's pretty cool that, you know, we pretty much own the only crypto that's in the crypto sphere, and I think all of us know that. And like I said, this is a very, very special community, and I'm very, very proud to be a part of it.
Yeah, stay around for a while.
I can't wait for that special edition Monero Talk. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, I think we're doing it on Monday. Should be fun. Anybody who's listening, guys, you know, we do the Monerotopia shows. That's really meant to be kind of similar to this, but hopefully with video as well. So, you know, anybody that's willing to speak here, please join us on Monerotopia anytime we do it. Come up on stage. We use Jitsi, so it's, you know, it's pretty easy. You know, pretty easy for anybody to jump on. You don't need to create an account or anything. You just go to the link, and you could join us on stage on Monerotopia. So obviously, everybody is always welcome to join.
I'm gonna boycott them because they're at like 7 a.m. Central. Sorry, Eastern, which is like 6 a.m. Central. How am I supposed to wake up for that, Doug?
You need that gratuitous coffee, man. You gotta.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, I need. Yeah, yeah. Fine. I kind of set myself up for that one, I guess. Yep. They are really early though, but
I think this is a good time for both of them to plug their coffee. There may be some people in the audience that don't know about the projects that both of these guys are doing. Maybe we can get some comments on that.
All right, yeah. I'll give a serious remark to it. So it's gratuitous. Basically, concept is you could buy coffee. We get our coffee from Guatemala. We started with coffee. That's the first product. We hope to add more. But you could buy our coffee, and then you can send a tip with Monero directly to the farmers that farm the coffee. So we literally went down to Guatemala. We went down last month, and we hooked up 20 farmers with their own paper wallets. We taught them about Monero. And you can send your tip. We put the QR code on the bags of coffee we sell, and it will go to the Monero farmers. And then not the Monero farmers, the coffee farmers, but we hope to add other products soon. We're adding olive oil. We have macadamia nut oil. That was another farm that we actually, came across when we were down in Guatemala. And we're adding olive oil. We're talking to somebody from the Monero community, actually, that reached out to us. Who has, a connection to a farm in Greece. So we're hoping to go there either in July or maybe September and do the same thing. But yeah, that's the basic concept. Gratuitous.org.
All right, Black Brew, do you want to give your minute spiel?
Oh, guys, I appreciate that, but I didn't want to come on here to, just plug my coffee. I just wanted to basically thank you guys for, just being you, and that's it. And I can sell my coffee any other time, and it's all good. And I appreciate what Doug is doing, because I think that's phenomenal. That he's basically helping the farmer, and the fact that he could help him with digital cash. And I think that's a great idea. But I actually have to start cooking dinner for my family right here. But like I said, that's all I wanted to say to you guys. And I appreciate each and every one of you. And I will see you on the threads, or I'll be more than happy to chime in and get you guys back against any maxi. Anyway, Monero all the way, babies.
Great to have you here.
Have a great weekend, everyone. Be safe and have fun.
See you later, man. See you on Monerotopia.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Yeah, he's everywhere on Twitter now. He's on there 24/7.
I want to give kudos to Tyler too, man. So good job with starting your podcasts. Let us reach out to us anytime if you ever have any questions. I don't know, we can maybe provide some help there, but good for you, man. It's nice to see. And anybody else who's listening, we were talking about it earlier. What can noobs do that want to help Monero, or people that aren't developers or super tech savvy? Myself, I'm one of those people. So one of the things you could do is start a podcast. So you look at the Bitcoin community, there's plenty of podcasters, so there's always room for more. And then I think everybody always kind of has their different twist on it. So good job, Tyler.
Appreciate that. You're an inspiration. You're churning out those podcasts like every week usually. So I know that that's not easy to do and takes a lot of time. So kudos to you.
Thanks, man. That's all Sunita. She's definitely the backbone of Monero Talk.
Yeah, I'm just astonished at how much content you put out. Like, I struggle to commit to do like one weekend, sometimes a month, where I'm like, I gotta sit down and do this Monero meet this one Saturday, right? Which happens to be tomorrow. So it's just astonishing. And it's fantastic you're able to do this so frequently.
Yeah, Monero events make up like half of my calendar schedule.
Right? Like at this point, weekends are just like, well,
it's
how
gone.
many hours would you like to spend? Would you like to spend 6 or 8 hours today at this Monero meet, right?
Yeah, and Chill and Casey are on my ass all day about the Monero party. Like, I'll be honest, it's Chill and Casey. I'm not doing anything. I'm just a face. So it's just good to see that we're all working together, getting this thing done. Sunita, you're a boss. We know it's not Doug. We get it. It's always the ladies. So shout out to all the ladies in the Monero community. We got the best ones.
Yeah, we knew it was Sunita all along.
It's pretty obvious. I mean, look at me.
Derek is so tired of hearing from me.
I get DMs from Casey on like 6 different messengers, and I'm never sure which one to look at. And then she tells me to go look at this one, and I'm like, oh god damn it, Casey! Like, just send me a message on Twitter then.
You get these spur of the moment things, you got to send it off before you forget about it.
It's a job, man. It's a job. So I will say, for those looking to participate in the community, do be aware of your time and budget that appropriately, because you will become essentially a Monero maxi, and this will be your job.
And that's not even a joke. That's a warning.
Yeah, well, let's rename this channel the Monero maxi life balance, right?
Yeah, I'm curious, like especially with Tyler, like diving in so quickly and then spinning up an awesome podcast. I want to see how long this goes. I got bets on this right now, so I'm excited. The angle that you're coming from with, like, the perspective of Bitcoin, like Doug says, it's something we don't have in the Monero community, and it's so appreciated.
Sorry about
right
that.
now,
My
dude.
connection's a little bad. What was the question?
No questions.
He was just saying overall it was cool to see the amount of time you're putting in, and was hoping it would stay that way.
Oh yeah, that's the goal. Definitely takes a lot of time. I need to get myself a partner in crime for sure.
Hey, Sunita, you're actually you moved your way up. Welcome.
Yay! I finally made it.
How does it feel to be on your first Monero event?
It feels great. It feels great. We were
Nice.
able to pull off the live streaming, although there are 3 parts to it, but we made it happen.
Blame that on Twitter. What's up with the third part? What happened there?
Because we were streaming the first 2 on a hotspot, and we were running out of data, so we tried to jump on Wi-Fi, and the only way to do that was to log off and log back on again. So, but we made it happen. We think we chose a good time to transfer to Wi-Fi. So.
Yeah, while Justin's talking, I see it was.
So Sunita managed to do this while going from her job and driving through New York City traffic back to Brooklyn and through rain. We had to use an umbrella to get the computer out of the car.
I stopped on the side of
and then we did have to switch it from the hotspot to the Wi-Fi. So yeah, there's a lot going on behind the scenes over here.
Yeah, at one point I had to stop on the shoulder of the LIE to figure it out, because we didn't want to, lose this opportunity. So,
what's the LIE?
I'm sorry, the Long Island Expressway. That's right, New York, baby. It's the Long Island Expressway. It's just an expressway, a highway, a very popular highway.
Got it. Yeah, I've been there for less than 24 hours. So that doesn't really count.
Oh yeah, you were here. Oh, right, for that talk. How long ago was that?
That was early 2019, I think.
Oh, wow.
That was like forever ago now. That flight, the flight from Minneapolis to New York was like COVID empty. Like there were like 5 people on this plane. I had no idea. I was so confused. I'm like, how do I have an entire row to myself on this flight to New York? Made no sense, but whatever. It was nice.
Did you explore the city at all, or you were able to? No,
only a tiny. I mean, I walked around like the southern tip of Manhattan, but that's it.
All right, so you can say you've officially been in New York. That's good.
In a similar way, I've been to Lisbon, and that I had to lay over there. Was that?
No, you got out of the airport for 2 days, so.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
We'll have you over for dinner next time.
Yes.
Anybody on this chat that's into Monero that's ever coming to New York, hit us up, DM us. Love to meet up with you. Anybody that's wants to meet and talk in person.
Actually, I'm coming out for the Governor's Ball in was that August or whatever, that music festival. So I'll probably let y'all know when I'm coming out.
Oh, yeah,
nice.
definitely.
Yeah,
awesome.
do.
Yeah.
What other? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, awesome. Sounds good. I'm actually taking off here, but keep doing what y'all are doing. You're amazing. See ya.
You are too, Matt. Take care.
Later, man.
Thanks. Bye.
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 Welcome. Do I pronounce it Gyro? Gyro. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but welcome to being a speaker. Say hi. Looks like, if you want to be a speaker, you can request. You have plenty of slots now. Well, actually, I say that we have 1 slot. But we're still going on here. So what else? We've gotten late enough that we can start talking about some juicy Monero drama. What should we get into? Who has some Monero drama?
I don't know if this counts, but man, the Bitcoin community, they are all over this crypto mining council. And I think it's a beautiful opportunity for us to be talking about RandomX. And I know we spoke about this earlier, but I mean, with everything going on with the ESG, which kind of seems like a little bit of a chilling effect into eventual KYC AML, and with the hash rate falling out of China, hopefully it doesn't expand further into North America, because it's going to be an opportunity for them to push their bullshit. So I think it's a good time to be talking about Random X with some of your maybe more Bitcoin maxi kind of guys and girls.
Do you think Random X or fungibility? Do you think, like, if you had to pick one, which do you think would be a more appropriate conversation to have on those?
That's difficult. I mean, I feel like those are two pretty good vectors to. I mean, those are two of the main downfalls of Bitcoin, right? Is the fungibility and then the centralizing effects of ASICs and that industry. You look at Michael Saylor, who called the top North American institutional miners for a meeting. I don't think you could even attempt to do that with Random X.
Well, now you watch. I'll just send out a tweet saying I'm calling all the miners. I can attempt it. I'm kidding, obviously. But yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. So you're saying between talking to someone, if you can only name one point, you would go with the Random X point instead of the fungibility point. Is that correct? Again, so assuming you had to pick one.
Man. No, I'd probably go with fungibility. Because, I mean, that kind of bleeds over into the centralization of the mining. It all begins with fungibility.
Got it. Yeah, it's a tough choice, right? They're both good. Hey, Mark. Welcome to being the speaker.
Hey, guys. I've got some juicy Monero drama.
Ooh, what's this?
While I was at work, I was just kind of sifting through crypto YouTube, and Chico Crypto, he's one of the larger crypto influencers, and in one of his live streams, someone asked him about Monero and why he doesn't talk more about fungibility, and the clip's on my profile, but he basically says it's too much of a risk for him and someone in his position to even talk about Monero because his kind of livelihood as an influencer is at risk.
All right, do you just mean in the terms of people not liking the fact, like he'd be sort of canceled, so to speak, for mentioning Monero?
No, he mentions. I mean, the clip's only a minute long. It's only a minute. It's on my profile. But he mentions I think he says governments and institutions, and then he mentions that they have the real power and that he's already under some sort of scrutiny for doing certain things, and he's just treading on eggshells from what it sounds like, and mentioning Monero probably wouldn't help him.
And this is a crypto YouTube influencer?
This is Chico Crypto. I don't know how many subscribers he has, but he's one of the bigger ones.
Does he like shill random things all the time?
He's been known to, yes.
All right, so this sounds like a totally BS excuse for me. There's no reason that someone could not talk about why they care about Monero. Like, you're not a regulated institution. You're just someone who shills coins on Twitter, right? Like, and YouTube. Like, this just sounds incredibly misleading to me in the best of cases, and just outright like malicious in the worst. That's just insane to me.
Let's get him in this room. We're all talking about it right now.
That's a good point. It's not good to talk behind people's back. Let's bring him on.
Yeah, well, at the end of the little spiel, again, go watch it. It's clipped on my profile. At the end of the little spiel, he gives credence to Monero. He says that he thinks it's one of the most valuable projects in the long run. But yeah, he's obviously the risk to reward ratio for him isn't strong enough for him to discuss it.
Yeah, that's just mind-boggling to me. The thought that someone would have a risk that talking about it on a YouTube channel and just a general broad concept would be like risky, when he's probably doing paid promotions, which is probably more likely to get him like hit by like a consumer protection board or something if he's doing that wrong. Like, I don't know, whatever. People are weird sometimes.
Yeah, well, it makes me appreciate people like what's his name, British fella who did the Monero deep dive. He's done a few of them, videos like that are just integral to getting people up to speed with technology and simplifying things. What's his name? Can someone remind me?
Is it
Is
the
that Coin Bureau? Oh, Justin, you just said it.
Yes,
Thanks.
Coin Bureau. That's it. That's it.
Clearly, we're all familiar, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like, sometimes I think about I'm not familiar with the YouTuber you're talking about, Mark, but I feel like, some of the videos I come across sometimes, like the really like, hype, like pump Moon Boy videos, like there's a certain brand, right? Like there's a certain personality profile. And I think sometimes if you're just thinking about, their audience and who would be interested in following the kind of content they have, like maybe privacy, I mean, I don't want to be patronizing, but I think, like privacy is just not the kind of like sexy thing that people like to talk about. Sometimes it gets nerdy, and I think, that's part of it too. I think it just doesn't get people excited enough. So we need to change that.
No, I think you're right, but I'll give him. He is one of the better ones. He's not just. He's kind of halfway in between a really good informative one and peppered in. There'll be some questionable stuff, but he's done some really good videos, and yeah.
Okay, yeah, thanks for sharing that. I'll make sure to take a look at the clip for sure. Thanks, Mark.
No worries.
We had someone on stage. It looks like they've ducked out though. J-Ro, do you want to give another shot here to try and talk? All right. If you're not going to speak, that's totally fine. There's no obligation to or anything. But I will remove you as a speaker just to make some extra speaker spots here. So obviously, feel free to stick around. But we want to have the people who are mostly talking here that are on the stage, which is, again, it's fine that you can listen in for now. All right, Mr. Anonymous, want to give it your second try here? Who's this detective in the chat here that I just had as a speaker?
It's Fluffy.
It's Fluffy. It's Fluffy's alt.
Ricardo, speak.
That would be a twist. I'll be honest.
I'll say I have started drinking. I have just tried my first White Claw, being back in the United States.
What are your
What
thoughts
flavor?
on White Claw?
She gave me a raspberry. It's all right. I've been drinking too much of that German lager, that thick basement beer, and then coming back to this like fruity stuff. I don't know. I feel like I'm eating a lollipop.
Topo Chico started making like similar stuff. I had a few of those. I don't love it, but someone bought a case for me, so I tried them. I assume they're pretty similar.
What was with that Monero glass that you had a picture of, Justin?
The Monero glass?
Yeah, was it like a beer glass? Maybe I dreamed this, but I thought I saw like a picture of a Monero glass. It was in your hand. I'll
yeah,
start
the
searching.
triptych glass.
Oh,
yeah,
the
it was triptych.
one. Yeah,
that's Monero to me.
Yeah, there's this brewery just south of Champaign, Illinois, which is like, people jokingly, if you're from the Chicago area, you jokingly call it Southern Illinois, but it really is like Central Illinois. That has this brewery called Triptych, and they do have some very apt beer names. For example, they have a beer called Dank Meme. So I really think that the odds of them being supportive of the idea of making a Monero Triptych brew is probably relatively high, but we shall see. We shall see. I'll bring it up with them soon, and hopefully I'll be driving down there to try the Triptych Monero brew. We shall, like I said, fingers crossed.
I'm in town.
I love the way you think.
Go ahead, Joe.
No, I said I love the way he thinks.
Yeah, I'm definitely down to visit this brewery. So if you do go, let me know because I'll catch a flight and come out.
You're gonna fly to Champaign, Illinois.
Well, I'll go to Chicago and then we'll ride to Champaign, Illinois to go try this thing.
That makes more sense. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Yeah.
And then see if we can get this collab done to get a Monero triptych beer. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, because I see the
Enough
word
for
triptych, and at this point, I only can think of Monero. Like, come on, right? So, what, Casey?
Oh, I was just gonna say wheels are turning. Enough beer for 500 people in the middle of August, perhaps.
That's a good one. We'll just have the Triptych Brewery deliver the kegs. That's hilarious. That would make them more interested in making the brew. I would say if they.
That is what I'm talking about. Let's do it.
It better be good. What type of beer is the Triptych Monero brew? Do you think?
Nerdy.
What's a nerdy beer?
An IPA.
Dark, right?
So is it Mark or Deverick that's an IPA?
I said IPA.
IPAs are like a dime a dozen now.
They're still pretty rare in Australia and expensive. Alcohol is very expensive here. You guys were talking about White Claws before. You want White Claws in Australia? It's 20 Australian dollars for 4 of them at a bottle shop.
Yeah, it's pretty gross. I can get those cheaper at a bar in Champaign than the amount you're saying. But
Yeah, we get taxed on the alcohol.
Any other ideas for what? Is it just going to be an IPA or what's our best shot? What's our ideal Monero brew or Triptych brew in particular?
I said earlier I'd imagine it'd be a dark beer since it's like privacy anon coin, but I don't know. I love saisons. I don't know if a saison would fit.
Hey, it looks like you got your audio fixed, Mr. Anonymous, maybe.
It could be a cloudy beer.
Ooh, that's a decent. Yeah, that's a good idea worth exploring, I would say.
If you can't see through it, then it kind of speaks to the anonymous aspect.
Hey, Mr. MK1BTC, do you want to say hi?
Yeah, I might as well. Pretty much kept myself really anonymous online, keeping random posts and shilling the shit out of XMR and stuff, to the point where I've nearly given up. But I just truly feel like XMR is the future, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, we'd definitely rather see privacy than mass surveillance, I would say.
It's mainly because on my side, the way it all started was, well, I'm 30 years old, and I got into Bitcoin pretty much at the very beginning. Because I've always been into computers and shit. And yeah, just fired up my own little node, mined, done that type of stuff. But didn't think, I knew something massive would come from Bitcoin, but not to the extent that it's happened, if that makes sense. So yeah, basically I mined Bitcoin, played around with it, sent it from wallets to wallets, and lost it all, if that makes sense. And And then from there onwards, then, so I've always been into computers and crypto and shit. And then, yeah, well, Bitcoin basically pumped up to massive numbers in 2017 to the point where it was like, fuck, I've missed the boat. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, man, we're enjoying your talk here. Keep going.
Yeah. No, I was just making sure you could all hear me, like, because normally I don't do this type of talking stuff because like I keep myself to myself. So like I said, yeah, so basically 30 years old, got into Bitcoin at the very, very beginning of it all, dicked about with it, and literally lost it all. So yeah, Bitcoin pumped. Heard everyone talk about how well it has done. And yeah, just literally missed the boat. Left it a couple of years then. Accumulated here and there. And then obviously last year then we had that big March crash then. And then yeah, went all in on it because you know, Bitcoin's massively hyped. So yeah, rode it to the top. And then once we got pretty much high in the price wise, because I always knew of XMR and I believed in that more. Once you got to the high end of price, I literally just fucking sold a lot. So I hold 0 BTC, all in on XMR. I know it's sketchy because obviously you don't have that mainstream hype behind it all. But I missed Bitcoin back then, so I'm trying to, I don't know, just tell everyone about XMR, if that makes sense. It's really difficult to put it into words.
No, I feel you.
Yeah, so no, like literally, I truly think like Bitcoin days are done. If I'm perfectly honest, I understand the logics behind it. I understand it's limited, this, that, blah, 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 and all the other shit that you hear. And I just feel like XMR's massively heavily shorted, and I'm sure we all feel that way. Because for the coin that you're getting for the price is worth, well, it's cheap as shit. It's cheap. It's cheap, and you would never get that privacy anywhere else if you were to pay that in it. If that makes sense.
We're still very early.
Yeah, and it's like so disheartening to sometimes see on the charts. Like, I post shit, and I don't try to tell people when to buy or to sell or any of that crap, but I do post random charts now and then. But every chart that you'll see is like when you see XMR to Ethereum, it's XMR is at its all-time low. So everyone might think, oh, sure, it's pumped up at one point from like, say, the March crash of say $20, went up to $500, crashed down to $250. Recently, we had like basically an easy 50% drop. But it's the cheapest fucking coin you can fucking have. And the only reason Bitcoin is doing so well is because you have the likes of Saylor, Elon. You know what I mean? It's mainstream hype now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense. Well, I mean, we've been talking about this for months on end now, that there's a narrative within Bitcoin that it's just kind of a numbers go up game.
Yeah, and
So go ahead.
Yeah, and that's basically what got me was like out of it. So I'll take the risk. If Bitcoin goes to fucking 100k laser eyes and all that stuff, well, fucking brilliant. Good on them all. But the bit that I found that was an issue is because I started dicking around with it around the March crash. I basically went all in. And because of that, then I didn't quite understand the tax issue of it all. And I'm not a person to like evade tax or anything like that. but I didn't realize the circumstances of every transaction. Even though I knew it was traceable, but I didn't realize how much of an effect it could have, because you can't get yourself out of that situation, if that makes sense, because it's, you know, you set up a Coinbase account. You think that's all good. You tick all the boxes, stuff like that. You make money. You send it from Coinbase then to Binance because Binance got cheaper fees. So you think you've done yourself a favor there, but without you realizing it, but sending it from point A to B, you have now been taxed. So over the time then, you know, you go past your taxable event. It's really difficult to explain it.
Yeah,
And I
that's,
don't know if I'm just talking shit.
in my opinion, that's the way they've neutered Bitcoin. And from its original vision was, you know, the people's money is that you attach an ID to every address and every exchange, and then every time it's moved, you tax it. So it's, people don't move it, they don't use it as a currency, and they're obliged to pay tax on it because there's a written in stone record of where they sent their funds and what happened to it.
Yeah, and that's exactly basically the situation that I then become in, to the point of you've made gains, but you don't want to sell to benefit your life because of the taxable event. So in the end, then you're forced to hold, and then everyone's like, "Oh, hold Bitcoin, hold Bitcoin," and then you're thinking, "Well, sure, I've held Bitcoin, but it's pumped so well." And then you look at the price of XMR, and you're like, "Well, fundamentally, XMR is worth so much more than what it's really selling for." So yeah, from that point onwards, I basically just fucked off for my BTC. I hold 0 BTC, and I don't believe in it anymore. I think it's overpriced.
Is that true? It's a taxable event to send Bitcoin from one exchange to another? I thought it was only selling.
You have to fucking prove it all, man. You have to prove it all. It's really hard. It's really hard work.
In the US, Ben, in theory, like you don't. You pay,
Yeah, I'm from the UK.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, it depends everywhere, but you're
I'm
right. It
US
would be
based.
on the gain or loss at the time of the sale.
Right. So if you, I mean, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but if you're saying that you lost a bunch of money or you lost a bunch of
No, I
opportunity,
haven't lost no money. Definitely haven't lost no money, but it's come to the point of like, it's not trying to avoid tax, but it's like, you know, when you hear like, say PayPal, they do their shit, and then you got Binance, they do their cards, you know, so you can get like a debit card is in a certain sense, but a crypto debit card. Does that make sense?
I know. Well, I know what a crypto debit card is. I don't understand your point.
Say in the UK then, because I'm from the UK. So say now I don't have a Binance card, but say I get a Binance card. From that then, annually, I'm only allowed to have £12,300 gain
in the terms of the card.
In general. So say forget work, because I do work, but say without work, it is difficult because the UK laws are slightly different. So basically, I go to work, I'm allowed 12,500 tax free, and then whatever my wage is. And then say with crypto assets, they don't consider it as gambling, and they don't consider it as this or blah blah blah. So say say I buy Bitcoin last year at £3,000. This year then I sell it for more than say £20,000. You have made 12,000. Say, well, you're allowed
17,000. You made $17,000.
Yeah. So basically, on this way, fuck, I buy Bitcoin for £1. I sell it for £20,000. The only tax-free that I can have on that is £12,000.
Oh, in America you get 0, I believe.
Yeah, we basically get none. Yeah.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah. So that's even worse, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's even worse. So it comes to the point, basically, I bought Bitcoin basically dirt cheap, and in 1 year made like an easy £80,000 plus.
Hey, I'm just going to quickly interject here. I appreciate hearing your story. I think we're going to probably switch to a more related Monero topic for a few moments here. But I appreciate you jumping in and saying, expressing your support for Monero and how it's been, I don't know.
Oh, it's not. It's nothing to do with like tax evasion or anything like that. But what it came down to is the fact of basically, you got like these sites like Coinly, stuff like that, where you sign up, you give your API keys in, if that makes sense. So once you give your API keys in, stuff like that, you can say where you bought it, where you sold it, this, that, blah, 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 blah. But the issue was not that I was doing anything dodgy, because I've got a family, I've got a fucking 3-year-old little boy, blah, blah, blah. But what the issue became to was, prior to that, when you hadn't realized that all those transactions would matter, you then have been left with like a whole shitload of mess. If that makes sense? Even though they ain't big money, you are left with like, oh, can you explain where this £10 went to there? This £10 went to there.
Yeah. And
that's
if you're potentially audited.
Yeah. So really, what he's saying, just to close him out here, what he's saying here is that he didn't realize until later that Bitcoin had these features that really allowed it to be traceable, right? It really allowed it to create a system where they can regulate it in such a way that he wasn't really envisioning. And then that's when he kind of reached into this understanding that Monero was a different path to take. And maybe in the future, that's why he said he had, an investment in the future. This is just a philosophical move for now, and he sees it as being the future. So, I think most of us would definitely agree with you there.
Definitely like no tax evasion. There's no like illegal activities. I've done it all. I've filled out my paperwork. I've done it all. But what the issue was just like literally having to backtrace it all to being like, oh, that one time when I sent £10 to my mate on Binance for fun, just so he could leverage it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's one of the struggles with this. When it comes to holding most of these cryptocurrencies,
like where you then realize, which I knew beforehand anyway, but obviously I didn't realize if I buy low, and then I didn't realize Bitcoin would basically pump its fucking tits off. To the point where basically it's like, oh shit. Now I've sent a shitload of money around. I didn't realize X amount had been taxable event. Now I have to, and now I have to sort it all out. And I'm happy to sort it all out because I don't want to put a bad word on Monero, because Monero is not for that use case. I don't use it for drugs. I don't use it for a black market. I literally think it's a better store of value than Bitcoin. But the issue is having to sort out the mess. And I think there's a lot of
you got to do quite a bit of accounting with all of this. You got to be careful. I'm gonna quickly, Chill. Can you messaged me saying that you're interested in talking about the Monero inflation rate. If I'm correct, the Monero current inflation rate, and by inflation I'm talking very broadly, the idea that inflation is simply just the issuance of new funds, nothing more interesting than that. But obviously we know that that's a little bit more complicated in practice. Can you talk a little bit about Monero's current inflation rate compared to Bitcoin, other assets?
Yeah, Monero, unlike Bitcoin, has a slight inflation rate that's less than 1%. But and we get a lot of questions about this because people have this idea that inflation is bad because we are seeing, the Federal Reserve printing $27 trillion and just, quantitative easing infinity. just diluting the supply. Basically, it's a financial diarrhea. So that obviously gave people this idea that inflation is inherently bad. However, if you compare it to Bitcoin, with Bitcoin, after the last block is mined, and there's not going to be an incentive for miners to continue to keep the operations and the mining facilities on. Whereas with Monero, we are assured that the miners will still get paid, and there's an incentive to keep the network secure and to keep the mining operations running.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating to look at like the supply dynamics, because people often like to look at like extremes, like, oh, in 50 years, this is what it'll look like. Or people being like, in 100 years, Monero will have a lot more coins than Bitcoin. But it's like, okay, come on. Like, let's also be honest. Crypto's new. Dogecoin can clearly do well with massive inflation rates in the short term, right? So, it's important to keep these sorts of things in context, I'd say. And in the moment, Monero certainly has, for the next long while or several years, a lower new coin emittance rate than Bitcoin. I think that's pretty interesting.
Is there a chart or a change in the Monero inflation over time?
If someone could do me a favor, just pull up and then tweet with the hashtag Monero space if you have the Bitcoin versus Monero inflation rate. But yeah, Monero's is decreasing. We're almost at 0.3 XMR per minute. We're getting close, I think. So I think we're a year away about from the Monero tail mission. So it's getting pretty close.
So there's a tail. So I just pulled up something. So everybody who might not know, Bitcoin decreases all the way to 0, but XMR decreases until it hits a minimum, and then it just stays at that. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, remember, it's not a minimum percentage inflation. It's a minimum flat amount, gross amount. So yeah, it starts at about 1%, and then it's decreasing percent per year at the same constant rate. Yeah, constant gross amount. Sorry.
But also that happens simultaneously as the network is growing and the use cases are growing. So it gives, because if you think about it, one of the biggest problems we have with Bitcoin is that people have this hodl mentality where they just keep it on the ledger and dust it off, and there's no use case, and utility drives value. With Monero, not only it's easy to use, it's less than 1 cent to use it, but there's also this inflation, so it kind of incentivizes you to use it. And if the demand is growing, at least there's a less than 1% inflation rate to cover that.
By the way, I want to quickly say you guys are the best. Two of you shared already with the hashtag Monero space and Monero supply charts. So you guys are clearly at least listening to us. So thank you. But yeah, is there anyone here who's like really firmly of the idea that you need a very, very fixed amount? Because personally, I never really got that. But of course, I'd be curious if anybody here was like very much in the camp that no, you cannot have any new issuance after a certain point. I want it to always be this exact amount. I've never understood it, but I'd love to hear why you think that is good to have no further amends of anything. You can also let us know by sending a tweet with the hashtag Monero space, because we'd love to know. But someone left a comment. They said, would Monero ever consider changing the inflation rate to a fixed percent? Wouldn't that be better if you're trying to actually have a small but fixed inflation rate? That's from Sal, Bitcoin sign, Ochin, MD, whatever. I don't know, a bunch of weird letters. But that's a good question. I guess among three options, which do you think is the one that you will defend? Would you defend a very, very exact per the coin fixed cap? Would you defend what Monero's current is, where it's a disinflationary, decreasing percentage, but still always some new issuance? Or would you prefer it to be a fixed constant rate? What makes the most sense? And you can choose any number. Like you could say, I want a fixed constant of 0.001%, or you could, argue whichever of these three you like, but stick to one of the, say which of the three you think would be ideal in your view.
I would say percentage of the total supply would make more sense. But because the emission rate is so small, it's going to functionally be, it's going to be a pretty constant rate anyway. So it's sort of like a very small tweak.
I mean, it's a small tweak that would make a big difference in, I don't know. I mean, it's a long period of time, but in 50 years, it would, at that point in time, which obviously is quite a ways away, but at that point in time, there'd be a large difference in the issuance. Is that good or bad? I don't know.
I mean, whatever's necessary to secure the network, I'd have to look into it myself. But the small inflation rate seems pretty apt at this point, and it's less than 1%, and that'll only get smaller when you compare it to the total supply anyway. So I'm pretty happy with it.
Well, but my question is that we're measuring it in percent, right? So as you go, the number of coins you issue actually increases, right? Because you're trying to maintain 1% of the total issued coins. Is that the algorithm?
If you were to go for a fixed percentage, yes, it would. You'd issue more and more coins each year. In gross number.
Right. The only problem would be as the market cap got larger and larger and larger, in 1,000 or 1,000,000 years, you're going to be issuing more coins than the value of the materials on the earth, of all the raw minerals on the earth at some point. So you might have to adjust that in a million or 100,000,000 years or something like that.
Well, I kind of get how you get there, but why would the value of money be ever worth more than the value of everything that you're holding? I mean, wouldn't it adjust so that the market cap in effect would be similar to that type of value? And then
I guess, you know what, you're right. That actually is a good point. I think you're right, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the fixed amount right now, the way it is. It accomplishes the goal without leading to actual, large inflation. And then every year, the percentage of increase actually goes down. I think it's the best of both worlds right now.
I think what we have now is a good compromise. It provides security for the network. I think it ticks that box. But I don't know if this is maybe more of a philosophical question when you get to what's a fair distribution. Because if you have a set percentage, it's less about, or perhaps less about the actual security of the network. Maybe I don't know. It depends how you would argue what's important or not. But actually, I kind of take my own point back there, where I'll take that back. I'm not sure if you could say that a percentage would be more about issuance rather than security. So I take that back. I guess I would prefer either a fixed percentage or a fixed gross amount like Monero has over no growth, I guess. I actually don't like the idea of what is effectively a deflationary coin, as people eventually lose money, right? At some point you lose wallet keys. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But some people will die on that hill, especially in the Bitcoin ecosystem.
Well, I think also when something is deflationary, people just don't want to spend it, right? So if you're trying to set something up for a peer-to-peer payment system and you get something that nobody wants to spend, nobody wants to get rid of, what good is it, right? Like you're not really helping people transact, and all you can do is a store of value. And there's a reason why the whole Bitcoin narrative has shifted to that in the past year or two, right? Like there's nothing else they can do. I mean, well, there are other problems, but part of it is also, right, like people hold on to that, deflationary argument and say we have absolutely no inflation, and that's cool, but like who is going to want to spend a coin that, like nobody's going to want to spend money when it's deflationary. Like even look at our economy. When it's deflationary, nobody's spending money, everybody just wants to hoard, and that doesn't really move economy forward either.
Yeah, that's my hot take, is that I feel like it's not that hot of a take outside of crypto, but in crypto, it's a hot take, I think, that having some inflation is good to incentivize like use and investment of it. I mean, 1% is not a big deal in terms of total issuance, but I think it's far better than 0%. But I don't know. This is how you know you're in a weird room, and it's a crypto room that's talking about, oh yeah, some inflation is probably pretty good. But if you, like I said, if you have different opinions or anything, you can definitely let us know. We want to hear why we're wrong, why you think we're right. Let us know, because obviously none of us here represent the Monero perspective, so to speak. We all just are our own individuals that have different ideas on how Monero does things. So obviously you're probably going to have people that hear that maybe are at least like the disinflationary aspect of Monero, but we're definitely interested in hearing other perspectives too. How many Bitcoin maxis do you think died in the inside if they had to sit through that? I don't know.
I mean, the only reason Bitcoin maxis really like it is for the pure number go up reasons. There's really no other reason to want that feature. And so it's the only thing it really provides is marketing and the ability to more easily spread the concept of Bitcoin being a store of value. But it doesn't really provide anything beyond that. The real question is it possible for Bitcoin to essentially just be a store of value, which is what it's evolved or evolving towards?
I think it could be, yeah. I mean, it's already kind of been used that way for a fact, but what does everyone else think?
I think if enough people decide that something has value, it has store of value, right? Like you look at gold. What does gold do? It's just, like what do we do with it? It's just
Gold has
we decided.
lots of manufacturing of applications. I don't mean to pop your bubble, but it's very useful for lots and lots of different things.
Well, but what I'm saying is like people who are holding gold, like they're not holding it to sell to somebody for manufacturing purposes.
But if there was a global gold shortage or a bunch of gold got yeeted out into space or something like that, then those people that were holding it would be able to sell it back to the people that really needed to make chips and stuff like that. Gold, bond,
Isn't only
wires,
10%.
et cetera.
Isn't only 10% of gold actually being used in industrial applications? I mean, it's insignificant.
I hope it's less than that. I mean, 10% per what?
In total volume of gold out there that's been discovered.
I don't. You know what? That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. I mean, I think there would be other metals. There's other conducting metals and what have you.
Supposedly, silver has a lot more manufacturing applications than gold does.
Right, and then silver keeps going down. Well, until last couple of years did well, but other than that, for the last so many years, it's been going down. Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
It's almost like
argument.
on a supply and demand curve. There's like two different axes you have to worry about. Sorry, Vic.
And well, one thing that I think Bitcoin also, or people who would be interested in developing around Bitcoin, the Bitcoin ecosystem too, right? Like you look at the kind of securities lending like BlockFi and Celsius and the like, right? Like people can just hold on to their Bitcoin and put it on there and take a loan against it, so they never have to sell, right? If they sell, they have to pay taxes, but they borrow against it and then have money to spend, right? Like things like that, I think it's just infrastructure from the network effect that it's had from the from just the first mover advantage and having being able to do something like that people just have less and less incentive to sell. Gets expensive, like the earlier person was saying, right? Like the taxes really they're pretty burdensome right now, and it just happens so that there's some kind of ecosystem, some kind of infrastructure where people can go out and still be able to make money, be it, you know, interest or rewards arbitrage with, you know, between something like, you know, those like BlockFi or whatever it is, and DeFi, right? And getting that interest rate and just paying their loans off that way. And, you know, I think these are just little things that, you know, as we grow, maybe we can keep thinking, as, you know, the Monero project grows, like maybe that's something that we can think about too. Just more things you can do with your money.
One of the things I've been thinking about too is, I mean, do you guys think a central bank coin, if done in the right way, could potentially compete more so with something like Bitcoin than Monero? I mean, I don't ever see privacy being added in a real way to a central bank coin, but perhaps it could provide the store of value features that Bitcoin currently provides.
Are you talking about like a CBDC?
Yeah, but one done in a way where, you know, essentially the emission is known, you know, something that could mimic Bitcoin in a way, but obviously, you know, it's not going to be as purely decentralized as, or not going to be really decentralized at all compared to Bitcoin. But my point being, you know, it may be able to mimic some of the store of value features that Bitcoin offers, but I don't ever see it being able to, you know, provide the censorship resistant features that Monero truly offers, or the privacy features, because, you know, no government would be able to sacrifice that or give that up.
I mean, I'd be really, really doubtful of even being able to do you know, anything store of value, as in like if it's like inflation proof like Bitcoin. Like I don't think that's really possible. You know, even when you look at these governments, when they talk about their plans of maybe, or you know, them thinking about doing CBDCs, like a lot of the talking points are around, you know, being able to marry monetary policy and fiscal policy together and kind of get money to people quicker, right? I think maybe there's an argument to be made that the distribution of government money will be more efficient. But I think just inherent in these kinds of policies and the way we have been spending, you know, just every country has been spending for, you know, however many years now, I just don't really think they would be in a position to kind of you know, contract from that. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, I totally hear what you're saying, and I probably agree with you. But I'm just wondering, if anything, if they'd be able to more closely mimic those features as opposed to, you know, the privacy, the true privacy feature. So, you know, maybe a government, obviously they have their monetary policy, but with you know, a central bank coin, you know, they could maybe make that more automated and more transparent as opposed to how the policy is implemented today. They could do it in a more automated, transparent nature where the citizens feel like, you know, they know what the emission will be of the coin, as opposed to, you know, relying on a few guys in a back room deciding, you know, when to print more money. But, you know, so I just see that maybe that potentially being possible in some country doing it the right way. But even if they were to start to do that, I don't imagine them adding the true privacy feature. But maybe I don't know.
See, Doug, what this would be a fun thought experiment. I've actually had this exact thought before. Not more so in relation to what would I do, but would be really cool as a concept to think, what would this room do? What would a Monero room do if we were all an advisory board to a CBDC? And I'm not even thinking of the United States. Let's pick a very tiny country somewhere. There's a really tiny country. Their currency is not very well known. It's like, you know, certainly not the USD. We all know the USD is like the world reserve currency, right? So what would you do if you were like in charge of, so to speak, the central bank digital currency for like a small country. Like, one of the best ways you could differentiate is just issue a coin like Monero or like a fully shielded Zcash or something that was like totally private, right? You would go through all of you just make a great form of money, I would think. And then I think then you would attract a lot of attention because you get a lot of the property, like all the benefits of fiat, because it's issued by a country, right? So it checks all the fiat boxes, right? But then also you're able to provide privacy. So I actually do wonder at some point if some small country that wants to make a name for itself does just say, we're going to kind of YOLO our way and make this like super private, fiat CBDC, right? And maybe they get people to buy into it because they back somehow 1-to-1 or something with some combination of Bitcoin and dollars, or however they figure it out to reduce inflation or whatever. And it won't be completely trustless, but the idea is like, I mean, people still buy Swiss francs and the like right now, right? So there certainly are other value propositions you can kind of go under. So I'm kind of curious, if you try to like make the best CBDC you could, I wonder what this group would kind of come up with. Interesting for
Yeah,
me.
exactly. Good way of thinking about it.
So currently, the CBDC that the Algorand is working on, they're looking into doing it with a ZK ledger. So it's going to be private, but it does have a 15% inflation rate. I also liked what, when you talk about small countries, Justin, it's interesting to see like what Japan done, because right after Mt. Gox happened, and it was very unfortunate, but it kind of forced the regulators in Japan to start regulating this ASAP because of the whole outrage. And now they are like one of the first country that accepted Bitcoin as legal tender, and it just didn't try to reinvent the wheel. They all of a sudden they just said, okay, Bitcoin is legal tender, and they sorted out their regulatory mess. And that, I think, some of these unfortunate events sometimes lead to a lot of progress and innovation in this space.
I mean, yeah, that's a good point. People are quick to innovate when they have to, right? When everything's on fire, you got to fix it, or else you're going to burn. Kind of, survive or die instincts kick in.
Right.
Rotten popped in for 1 second. I had him as a speaker, but he must have ducked out. I don't know if he had issues or what, but he's welcome back to the stage if he wants to prompt and say hi again.
He's
Rotten,
still there. Come on.
Is it that time of the night?
I don't think it's that late for him. I don't know, though. I don't know where he is. But what other important topics do we still have to cover today? We've kind of covered a lot of stuff.
I still haven't got a report if anyone's done an atomic swap. I definitely want to do one of these tonight. I'll probably just do it between a couple bags or something.
I mean, that's the safest choice, yeah. I would steal your money if it's messed up, for sure. Just block you. Never speak with you ever again. Just kidding.
Hey, Rotten.
Yo, ladies.
Welcome.
Sorry, I've been busy doing other stuff, and we're recording an episode with Monero in a couple hours. How are you doing? What have you been talking about? Do you talk shit about me?
We've been talking shit about you for 6.5 hours now. Yeah, Rotten.
That sounds about right. I mean, there is enough shit to down talk me and say bad things about me. But regardless, is there any chance that you can do me a too-long deal read? What's been going on?
I mean, we spoke for maybe 2 hours or so on atomic swaps. We covered things like Monero supply recently. Goodness, this is forever ago. I barely remember what we did. What how did today go?
Howard Chu came
Yeah, we had
by.
Howard in here.
Yeah. That's important, yeah. So Howard was on.
That sounds pretty cool. Did the samurai intern stop by? No.
No intern. The intern only shows up for spaces that I host. You know, no one else.
Okay.
I'm going through on Reddit for the last month or so just to make sure we didn't miss anything. Obviously, crypto moves pretty fast.
Rotten, are you involved with Comet at all?
Who, Justin or?
You.
No, not at all. I'm the jack of I'm the jack of all the trades, but I'm not involved with anybody. I just lurk a lot and I have some context. So I heard almost like immediately after they released that release, and I just broke the news. Just the same as it happened with Samurai Wallet doing the first iteration with the atomic swaps on Bitcoin side, and just about the same when Monero did the same thing with mainnet and on-chain. But I'm not involved with any of those projects. I just have friends everywhere, or try to. There is a 1-to-1 ratio. For one enemy, I have another friend, so I keep it balanced out.
Hey, Rotten, you got a friend in me, buddy.
Nice. I guess I need to make a new enemy then.
You just joined recently the Bitcoin enemies, correct?
Yeah. That. I mean, I'm not doing anything formal there. I'm just hanging out and helping out with they have a podcast series called Bitcoin Diaries, and I just have access to tweet out from that name. So whenever you see me, you see similar ideas to what I post on Rotten, that likely is me. There is another guy who actually handles that account, which I don't really agree with a couple of his ideas, but I'm just working with them a little bit. And again, it's just for trolling. It's nothing formal. Now for Shift Crypto, that's actually employment. That is actually something. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, you know what? Sorry to interrupt you, Rotten. Is there anything else you want to cover real quick on that topic?
No, I'm all good. But if anything, I'm sorry that we keep talking about this random rotten asshole. Just carry on. Whatever you want to talk about.
Sure. So this news is kind of overshadowed, I'd say, by the atomic swaps today for the sake of this call. But if the atomic swaps didn't come out today, we probably would have been talking about this more. Just the secret Monero bridge. So the person who made it is like a longtime I2P contributor, actually, which I thought was pretty interesting. The nodes need to talk to each other out of band outside of the Monero protocol. So these are the nodes that actually do like hold some of the multi-sig keys that store the real Monero. And he made it such they all communicate with each other over I2P, for example. So like that is certainly a commitment to the I2P network. I have, of course, have my own opinions on secret network. I haven't like definitively placed it anywhere. But is there anybody? Does anyone here have an opinion on it before I give like a broad overview of like what it is and what this might mean for Monero and what are some things you need to worry about or at least think about when you're using it?
I mean, I don't understand much of it. I don't even know much of it. For context, I attended one meetup with one of the guys, and it just seemed so Ethereum-like. I was like, I passed. Um, but if it helps, sure. But I tend to be a little bit conservative on that front. Monero already works itself. I don't see the use case, nor do I want to go into DeFi with some secret token, whatever that. I myself don't see the use case. But if people find it useful, or if there is certain edge cases that they want to deploy it for, by all means.
Before I do that, I want to welcome John. Hey, John.
Hey, I'm kind of on an intermittent connection here, so I might be coming in and out, but what's up, guys? Been listening most of the day.
Well, I wasn't kidding, but John, you're a long time Monero contributor. You're great. I hope you're able to say hi in another second, but you really did prove your point there. All right. I was gonna say commits. No, not commit. We talked about it for so long. Secret network. So yeah, I talked about secret quite a bit a few days ago. I spoke with the person who put together the bridge, or at least the primary individual who put the bridge together earlier this week. And it's interesting, I would say. They take different trade-offs. I would say the one thing you need to be aware of is the trade-offs they do take probably make it easier for someone to steal your native Monero. So really, really, like, that's a really important preface, right? You need to put your real Monero somewhere. Your native Monero needs to go somewhere. And I think at the moment it's a multi-sig wallet across 4 nodes, for example. And so there's like so much that could potentially go wrong with such a narrow scope, like who is running these. And this person has high aspirations for doing like a total like DAO like setup where you have voting and like exchange of fees, and like it's very, very complex. At least it has high aspirations for how this would all go together. So be really, really careful on that front. So I cannot really like caveat that enough. And this doesn't override the caveats, but just the interesting part of it is it does seem to be designed in a way where you take native Monero and wrap it for so-called secret Monero, which is kind of a funny name because it's Monero. Of course, it's secret either way, but you make this wrapped token and you are able to participate in the secret network AMMs, you know, all those smart contracts they chuck together. And so I'm not an expert in like the AMMs within Secret. So like I'm kind of at the moment mostly taking their word for it about how they have certain privacy protections, which is kind of against my better judgment, if I'm honest. It's something that I'll need to dive in further detail to really fully understand where this privacy comes from to confirm it actually does exist. But it does certainly seem to be more private than like a Thorchain deposit swap, etc., which is very, very transparent. So they do seem to be taking more privacy focused trade-offs, which is kind of interesting. I do worry the user experience is going to be subpar, and like, why would you want to use a wrapped asset over the native Monero for the way you trade and the like? But you know, ultimately people will go where people trust, B, where there's good user experience, and C, where there's liquidity, right? Some combination of that really outshines the other options is what people are going to use. So we'll see. I'm glad it exists, and I'm going to see what happens when people start interacting with it. I do think I would trust it for a swap. So if I was taking Monero and wanted to buy Bitcoin, for example, I would at least trust it. I would say it's probably similar to trusting like an instant exchanger to some extent. I mean, if you're going to use Change Now, I mean, they've shown their face in a lot, and they've seemingly have done a good job to get some faith with the Monero community and other cryptocurrency communities. But at the end of the day, they are like straight up accepting your money and then sending you other money. So I mean, maybe you'd feel safer sending it to like one of 4 people, and they all need to like collude to screw up in a severe way and steal your money, or they can include it in a different way and be annoying. But yeah, it's kind of complicated. But long story short is I am kind of interested in it. I'm glad that they did seem to understand that Monero support was really important and fit their ethos pretty well. And I do think it helps shift the conversation a little bit rotten from like the whole like Ethereum, whatever token, whatever based, to a little bit more, okay, what are the actual fundamentals of privacy? I think to some extent Monero's like the discussions they've had to have to make Monero happen, I think have actually helped the situation a little bit, but ultimately we'll see. And at that, I think I'll just probably open up for questions on this, and it's probably best if I just answer questions people have on this, knowing that I am not a full expert in this, nor a representative, nor hold any money in it or whatever else. But I think it's good that people at least understand as much as I do if they have questions on secret, to the extent it might be a useful tool, or maybe it won't be. Who really knows? There's no liquidity there now, so it's not a useful tool in the moment, but people hope it'll be used, I guess. Oof, that was a buzzkill. What's going on? No questions? Nothing?
Dump secret.
Dump secret. Yeah, apparently. If there's no enthusiasm or follow-up questions, I think that's a good indicator. Yeah. Just make sure you send a tweet with the the hashtag Monero space how to dump secret.
So I know this is a Monero space event, but what's up with the pirate chain? Anybody know what's up with that? I mean,
you were gone when I was jokingly being the pirate chain persona.
Oh, because in Team Wallet we get like I would say, I don't know, 2-3 tweets a day plus DMs plus emails to our support staff asking when we're going to add pirate chain. I just don't know much about it. I mean, who can talk about it?
I can chime in a little bit if I may. This chain is as sketchy as it can get. It was launched back in 2018, and okay, the Bitcoin Talk forum, the thread got released one day after the Genesis block. So that's already a sketchy in and of itself, because that tells you that the developers launched it one day before the public knew. Nobody knows what happened within that 24-hour time frame. Since 2018, 90% of the supply has been mined. So there is a big chance that there is some early adopters, so to speak, quotation marks here, that have a huge portion of the supply, and that they're going to benefit from if all these pay shields keep being obnoxious and pushing wallet adoption and exchange adoption and listing. It's just sketchy. I don't see the value proposition in it either, because it has the trusted setup from Zcash. And it promises that it fixes the 51% attack because he uses something Komodo, something POS, something whatever. It just a dog tape thing with Zcash privacy protocols and something Komodo with the proof of work, whatever, decentralized proof of work. So the tool dear read is 90% of the total supply is already in circulation. Eagle launched under some questionable timeframes. There is a huge probability that there is a small amount of holders that have millions of it that are just waiting to dump on the naive newcomer investors. And it has the trusted setup caveat. So no, those pirate chain shields can go shield somewhere else. I'm not considering any grounds to that project.
Yeah, Vic, I don't recommend adding it anytime soon, but
Thanks.
I'm sorry you have to deal with all the spam at the moment.
Yeah, another one is the Haven XHV. We get those requests all the time as well.
And then Pirate Chain keeps popping in for Zcash spaces or community I don't know, meetings or whatever, same as with Monero and every other little privacy coin project, and tries to benefit from the track record of these projects. Like, oh yeah, we're privacy coins, blah 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 blah. They're just being so obnoxious and trying to build their own niche space within these already niche groups of privacy coins, just to lure investors in. It's just no.
Hey, John, do you have a better connection? You dropped out at the perfect time earlier, though.
I don't know. Can you hear me now?
I can, yeah. It was funny when you were on earlier, like, I have a bad connection, so, and then it just like died immediately after. So it was actually kind of funny, but
That is funny. With Pirate Chain, honestly, I don't know a whole lot about it other than the absolutely annoying shills on Twitter with it. And usually, in my experience, when I come across these shill armies, XRP did it, Pirate Chain's doing it now. I've seen it with a bunch of coins. It's usually a sign of some sort of scam or sketchiness going on. So I kind of agree with Rotten. I have heard about the whole mining, pre-mine thing too. So yeah, I don't know. I'm staying away from it.
I can't remember if it was like late 2017 even, or maybe sometime in 2018. I wrote an article about Komodo and how I thought their proof of work was obnoxious, or certainly incorrectly marketed. And I've kind of had a very negative view of Komodo and all of its derivative projects since. So I don't know. I have a relatively negative view, even just for the proof of work setup that they have alone, because they like are reliant on the Komodo notaries, which is, I mean, if you're a tiny coin, like, it's very risky to be proof of work. So like, I get it, but be honest about it. Don't pretend that it's more secure than Bitcoin, right? Or more decentralized than Bitcoin, or whatever they claim. It's kind of ridiculous. So whatever. But yeah, they're getting shilled everywhere, so we'll have to deal with this for a while. But we can pretty much ignore, though. Just hit the ignore button and carry on with our days, I would say.
Honestly, I think it's just a casualty of the bull market. I saw this the last cycle. Just it's just the hype brings these people out, and when the next bear market comes, whenever that is, they'll go away and it'll be quiet again.
Oh my, Monero. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm checking Coin Market Cap. We just passed over DAI. We're number 26. Woot woot, 26. Yay. Bitcoin's down 4% right now. ETH down, or Ethereum down about 7%. Most other stuff anywhere between the 3 to 7% range. But Monero is up 7.5%. So yay, atomic swaps. People are excited, it seems, or just they like the sound of my voice during these Twitter spaces. Who knows? I don't know.
No, I'm sure it's not your voice. Sorry.
Yeah, I appreciate that one. Thank you so much. I thought that was hilarious. If I'm not with a group of people that says that type of joke, I'm in the wrong group. Like, you got to be with people that make those jokes. Otherwise, what are you doing? So. Yeah, I appreciate that. Any other I mean, at this point, we've gone on for so long. We don't even necessarily need to keep it like exclusively on Monero. We can make it like
I'd
thoughts
love to
on
know.
other. Go
Oh,
ahead.
hey, sorry, just yeah. I'd love to know if you have any like hardcore BTC maxis that are in here lurking. If they want to come up and take the stage.
That also applies to R maxis. So if you're like a hardcore Bitcoiner, R maxi, by all you're invited. Request your way up.
I'm suspicious that Ben is a maxi in disguise.
I'm being called out here. No, I'm here. No, I'm just a tech guy. Okay, I like assembly. I like FPGAs. I like instruction sets and digital signal processing. So I held both. I held XMR and Bitcoin. I don't know what you want me to start yelling. You're going down in flames. We're better than you. What do you want me to say?
That brings me back. Signal. How niche of a field is signal processing? I used to date someone for like a short period of time that was into signal processing. He's like, the people have been working there for like 50 years.
Yep. Everybody's old, but 5G is new and everybody wants to do 5G. So that's what I'm involved in these days.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. You don't want to hear about my life story. So let's keep hearing about, I'm honestly new. I didn't know about atomic swaps. Didn't know that was a new thing. That's really cool. I missed you talking about those earlier. Are those 100% trustless and ready to go, or there's some caveats there, or what should I know about the atomic swaps?
So the atomic swaps are themselves, yes, they are trustless. Yeah, the ones that are between Bitcoin and Monero, they definitely are. There's some things that people sometimes call atomic swaps that aren't. Like Thorchain is not an atomic swap, for example, but people sometimes call it that. So I guess be careful you know what you're actually using. But yeah, you have the ability now for a maker to offer to sell Monero and then a taker to come in with Bitcoin and do an atomic swap. Yep.
Okay, and those aren't done in prices of USD. They're done in Bitcoin versus Monero, which is ultimately determined by the markets, right? But the values are in coin values on both sides of that swap, right?
Correct. Yep. The price is set by the maker. The maker's like, I'm willing to sell it for this amount of, I'm willing to sell this amount of Monero for this amount of Bitcoin. And obviously it would need to be a competitive versus USD rate for someone to agree. But yes, that you would have a taker that would agree to that rate and agree to take the end of the trade. Yeah.
So if you were to swap a Bitcoin into Monero and then swap a Bitcoin back out, let's say you did it in the same day, there was no change, hypothetically. What do you think the IRS would say about that?
I think that it would be really bad to try and do something like that for quite a few reasons.
Okay. I mean, does that break the chain? Not really, right? Or I guess, okay, let's put it another way. Let's say you were to swap into one wallet and swap out of another wallet. Is that wallet now virginal in terms of tracking and things like that? Is that the idea?
No, if you buy Bitcoin from a random person, you bet you're going to get tainted Bitcoin. So no, it's certainly not the equivalent of a new mined Bitcoin.
Well, sure, it's tainted, but it's not trackable back to you. Would be my assertion.
Wow, it's not trackable to me. It's trackable to North Korea. Wow, that makes my life so much easier.
I mean, you're being facetious, but my point stands, right? I mean, if you're trying to have Bitcoin in a wallet that you control that has no connection to Coinbase, right?
I agree here with Ben. I don't agree with that other guy. I drop him.
So Ben, the one thing you need to be careful of, Ben, when you look at the amounts, maybe this is actually fine if the exchange rate spreads are so dissimilar, but or you lose so much on both exchanges. But one issue that we see that is something to keep in mind, which may or may not be applicable. The extent to which it's applicable is really a case by case. But one thing they saw with people using Zcash's shielded pool, you jump in with a certain amount, and then you jump out with effectively the same amount. They call that like a Quesnel style analysis. I sometimes like to call it the just the tip attack, because you go in the shielded pool for just the tip, and then you just pull right back out. So that's the sort of thing you want to watch out for, is that you're not revealing enough metadata that way, or otherwise getting in trouble for doing that. So whenever you're transacting on a transparent chain. You need to be careful of the amounts that are being transacted, of course, in either case. And that is not just the amount in Bitcoin, but also the USD equivalent denominated amounts, because you can see on the Bitcoin side that a swap is occurring. So if nobody else made swaps over those types of time periods, then, I mean, good luck with your privacy, right? So
as long as you're acquiring that Bitcoin through KYC-free on-ramps, it doesn't really matter. But you also need to keep in mind that by the time that you want to spend, you should use two things, or keep two things in mind. One, use coin control. So you select the UTXO, you cherry pick your UTXO intelligently, so you don't give out that you don't tip out that you have a bigger UTXO, or you don't mix the UTXO that happens to be KYC with the one that is not that does not have KYC information. And two, when you spend it, you should not spend it through a regulated on-ramp, because otherwise you're prone to them saying this UTXO comes from a coin join, or this UTXO comes from a darknet market, or whatever bullshit the regulators come up with. Those are the main two things. But if you do an atomic swap with a Samurai user, or with what have you, there is not a certain way for you as an individual to go and look it up on a chain analysis cluster. The only two ways that you can counteract against this is just using proper UTXO hygiene and using coin control for one, and for two, again, just don't spend it through a regulated on-ramp, so you're not prone to them saying, oh, we cannot do business with you because this UTXO comes from a coin join, or has, I don't know, the third or the fourth hop down the line, it comes from a darknet market, whatever. And of course, the Monero shields are going to say, just use Monero. They're just being Monero reply guys. With that being said, I have a Spanish Monero podcast to record right now. It's been a pleasure. You ladies have fun. Please help us out spreading the word. It's going to be released later this weekend. Thanks for having me on. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, Rotten.
Bye, Rotten.
So long, man.
Case looks like Casey says they want to go. Bye, Casey. I think they already left, but I'll say it in chat. All right. So this has been fun. I think, I don't know how much more I have in me. We'll see. I'm having fun. I think we're gonna have to come up with a new activity though, or something, if we're gonna keep going, because we need to liven things up, I would say.
Sorry, I got kicked
But,
during the middle of that reply to me because Twitter crashed. So, that's always fun. But I guess the moral of the story would be, if you were trying to do a Bitcoin in and out, you would rather keep it in Monero and pull it out as you wanted to spend it, maybe, in Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. It's probably safer, TBH, to use an instant exchanger on the way out, if I'm totally honest. I mean, you have the counterparty risk, but if you go with an exchange that you know is not marked as high risk, then you kind of get the clean coins. You know what I mean?
Okay,
So
I didn't understand the UTXO description from the previous gentleman who just left. Rotten. So.
Okay, yeah. When people talk about things like coin control, it just means you need to separate each of the outputs you receive and be cautious how you spend it.
Okay, gotcha.
You still need to do that in Monero if you're on an extreme threat model. If you want to like really be careful, you should watch Breaking Monero as a shill, as myself who's made it. So of course you should watch it. But with Bitcoin, it's far more necessary that you pay attention to what coins you're using for what purposes or whatever.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So there are definitely some wallets that help you out with that. Samurai wallets, at this point, the main one that I recommend. And again, not invested in them or any way. I'll be very clear if I'm sponsored by something, but no. Samurai actually comes on some of, or at least came on one of the previous Twitter Spaces things that I did, and they answered questions and the like. They've been pretty good.
Very cool. I will check that wallet out. Thank you.
And Vic isn't here, or else he'd shill Cake Wallet. And then Rotten just left; he would shill Moneruyo. So we got all types here.
That's fun.
What else?
I've got a question for you, Justin.
Go ahead, John.
I just came across this thing. It was a while back, and I'm not sure if you know anything about it. I think it's just some trolling, but it was like Monero bad caca or something. Do you know anything about that?
Oh god, that was somebody basically just published a bunch of falsified info and was like, "Hey, look, this is totally true," even though it was not verified in any way. And basically, someone was just running nodes and was claiming that the nodes, like transactions, were potentially used for certain purposes without any evidence whatsoever. So no, it's someone making loud claims without any verification whatsoever, just because they can, because they know that journalists and the like have no, like, they don't actually verify anything, right? Crypto journalists generally, like, someone says something, it sounds scary, they write about it, right? They don't actually send a transaction, try to appear on the list, and are like, hey, this is not at all real. So it was just the person being annoying. That's all.
Yeah, I came to a similar conclusion. I was just wondering if you knew what that was.
If there was a legitimate concern, I would be 100% honest about it. But that is not a concern whatsoever. I would say what they did is they gave our subreddit filters like a real run for their money, because we had to go through on not only the Monero side, but on the cryptocurrency side, and really all, well, there's been a few instances of like weird Monero spam that's sort of come along, and it's these individuals have really given our spam filters like a sort of run for their money, and it's not just these two subs, it's like dozens of subs. So we kind of all had to unite together and like deal with this crap. So they were really annoying. They spent a lot of effort to try to be annoying, and most of the broad cryptocurrency community luckily didn't see this, but it was not because it was minor. It was because people like Need Money 90 spent hundreds of hours dealing with this crap. So yeah, it's, and there's some people you don't always know that they're doing a ton of stuff for Monero in the back end, but like truly some of these people in the past have done hundreds of hours of work, and it's nuts, but it's what it takes to get a good community, I guess. So it's good to have those dedicated people. Hey, Jeffrey Tech Tips, how are you?
Yeah, hi, what's up? I was planning to ask a question about Secret.
That's
so
fine. Yep, you can still shoot.
So is Secret kind of similar to the Incognito chain? I don't know if you ever heard of it or not.
That's it. Oh, sorry. I would say on a technology level, no, not at all. But on a sort of user experience level, kinda, yeah. And at the end of the day, you deposit your real native Monero into their system, either through the Incognito wallet or through the Secret network bridge. The real Monero is held somewhere. In Incognito's case, it is currently held by Incognito. In the Secret network, I mean, it's not live yet, but it will be by 4 nodes. So not that many fewer, to be honest. On the Incognito side, you are then able to participate in like a kind of Monero based, I think they have like AMMs, but they still use Monero Ring CT. And it might be like a colored coins implementation of Ring CT CLSAG for you to swap. And then on the Enigma side, this is where I get more, well, it's not Enigma actually, sorry. The the Secret network side, you're doing more like yeah, I'm more hazy on the specific technology though. That's why I don't want to give secure or privacy assumptions there, because I don't understand them super well.
You don't need to go too into it, but if I'm not mistaken, Incognito's AMM or DEX system is public. Just the moving of the tokens around is privatized or privacy enhanced.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, my main concern, I actually had a Monero Space interview
I think I saw that.
Yeah, so I interviewed the incognito. Need Money 90 was also on that call, and our main concern was mostly that at the time, and I believe what is still the case, is that the native Monero token is held exclusively by incognito, which, I mean, decentralization aside, is just generally pretty poor security practice. Like, it doesn't even seem the case that they're using like a custodian or whatever. It seems like they are holding it like on wallets that the CEO or head organizer, whatever it would be, has like the key to the wallet. So it's it's not good security practices. But for what it's worth, they have been relatively responsive. And it's not that I don't have a negative view of them in the sense that I think that it's kind of scammy. I just think it's my perception of the situation is they kind of bit off more than they could chew, and this pretty much throughout the way they do their network. I'm kind of like, you're doing a lot, and I'm not confident that all these pieces will line up properly. But obviously, that's speaking from someone who's like in the Monero ecosystem, and so we're obviously going to think everything's bad. So maybe compared to everything else in Ethereum DeFi, it might be good. Who knows? But as far as my broad perception, there are certainly many elements of risk that I'm worried about. So I parked I think it was like one Monero or something in incognito a few months back. I ended up eventually pulling it out, but I was able to pull it out, if that means anything, but not much.
Yeah, so their token PRV is kind of like Zilliqa mixed with Monero. Like, it's very, very over the top advanced for what it is. And that
Well, it's also
definitely
like
is
super complex. They have like these weird like mining nodes and stuff. Like, they have complexity like the whole way down. And in my opinion, at the moment, it's kind of like in a bad way. So who knows what's exactly going to happen? But yeah, I guess that's a good point. We should probably still at least include incognito in some of these discussions. But I would be more happy to include them if I felt more comfortable in their custody for Monero option.
I think it's definitely better than putting it on like a sketchy exchange.
I would say it's maybe better than a sketchy exchange, but certainly worse than a reasonable exchange. Like, I would trust money on Kraken far more than on incognito personally.
I can agree with that. Yeah, I'm always surprised when nobody talks about incognito for some reason.
Yeah, it's a good point. They definitely have done some discussions. I think if they did take a more serious approach to Monero security, which I know is kind of hard given the limited commercial options, but if they were able to address that issue better, I would be more likely to recommend it, I guess. But who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, they to some extent it is kind of like Secret, right? Where they issue the wrapped version of whatever token you deposit to their network and sort of go from there. Yeah.
Well, would it be more like wrapped BTC? Because wasn't there going to be a wrapped Monero product available on the Ethereum blockchain?
So BTC SE issued that. That's some like, what is it? Some Saudi exchange or something? I'm not 100% sure where they're out of, but they did issue a Monero ERC20 wrapped token, but it doesn't seem to have gotten much use.
Because, I mean, that would be kind of nice, because then you can kind of participate in DeFi and liquidity mine the Monero and slowly increase your stake as time goes on. So that's kind of what I've been interested in personally, is that aspect.
One thing I actually think is kind of interesting. So say what you will about Thorchain or whatever, there's certainly pros and cons, but one potentially very interesting thing about it is, since you already have this assumption of distributed custody for native Monero, and you already have these communication bridges built out between, Thorchain and Monero, and Thorchain and Ethereum, and Thorchain and everything else they build out to. Well, part of what they can do with their decentralized custody, or distributed custody, is that they can, as nodes, issue wrapped assets on these other chains that they're connected with. So they could issue like Thorchain wrapped Monero on Ethereum, or Thorchain wrapped Monero on Binance Smart Chain, or whatever they do. I don't know if they're able to do Binance Smart Chain, but you get the idea that whatever they're connected to and have the ability to issue a token on, that they could, in theory, do. And the same goes through AMM synthetic assets, or all sorts of things that they can do. So at the moment, that's what I think is most likely to get some adoption, but that of course will only get adoption if Thorchain itself gets Monero liquidity. So who knows? The future has a wide set of varieties or possibilities. Sorry.
Yep. Thanks.
Any other comments on that? Those sort of wraps, Monero, Incognito, anything else?
Well, I think if they get the security down, it would certainly be something that the community should consider more often, because I mean, it is a great way to park your Monero and earn a little bit on the side.
Yeah, maybe it's I guess at that point it's relatively similar security assumptions to Thorchain. So it's, yeah, I'd have to revisit it when they do that. Yeah, for sure. That's fair.
For me personally, like, this stuff sounds really cool, earning money on just parking your Monero somewhere with liquidity or whatever, but all this stuff is so new. I think I'd rather just wait a few years and let everybody, have the exit scams and all the problems get figured out before I jump on the train.
But John, you can earn 200% APR. You could have double or triple your Monero.
Oh, but I'm in it for the tech. Remember that.
Yeah.
What,
Also, just sidestep
what's
the
a
fact that
scam
you're paid
APR?
out in some other token. Sorry, Ben, what were you saying? I didn't want to.
I interrupted you. I'm sorry. What's a scam APR? Above 9%? What are we thinking here? Above 15%? What's a good?
Incognito does 13.
I mean, Algorand does. Actually, I don't know how much. Algorand does 6. Polkadot is over 10 at least. I think
it really depends. So there's two things. I never want to see a pre-inflation adjusted APR. If I'm getting paid from the inflation pool, like, you need to tell me that, right? That's one thing that annoys me about the whole, staking APR. Like, it's inflation, right? It's coming from fees, maybe also, yes. But like, let's be real. A lot of it is new issuance, right? Yeah, it's you're also normally paid out in like some other token that might not have value, and like it's a whole thing. So these you can never as dumb as it is, you can definitely never compare APR to APR because they're actually different numbers, and that's just surprising to people, I'd say, but that's the way it is.
Yeah, like my BlockFi account pays me directly in like the token that I actually hold. So I have ETH on BlockFi, and I get 4.5% of ETH, not 4.5% of BlockFi token, which could go up or down at any time. That's definitely something to consider.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you have to trust somebody there. It's not really DeFi, right? But
I
yeah,
know.
you definitely get a more traditional earning. I park money at Celsius on occasion, right? I only do stables there, but the stable rate at the moment is about 10%. So if that's any recollection.
It's better than keeping in a savings account, I'll tell you that much. Like a savings account at a bank.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to get Monero users to at least have these options. Suppose you do have Monero, and in theory, like, you wanted to take out a loan, but not lose your Monero long position. I think it'd be good to have these options. I mean, obviously the devil's in the details, and at the moment there are quite a few details that are devilish, but it is, in theory, interesting to keep an eye on and see what makes sense eventually. But I'm glad that the focus is increasingly on Monero, because having these strong financial products available will help Monero in the long term, I think, even if there's a few weird scammy-ish projects in the way eventually, in the interim. Sometimes I talk to people that are like, why would you ever take a loan? I don't like loans. And I just look at them like, you're the exception, right? Like, some people really like loans.
Well, they're definitely, at least in the States, they're great taxation, like, liability loophole.
Yeah, and even that, like, even putting aside the whole, I put up a lot of over collateral to borrow a loan, like, I have a car loan. I'm going to pay that off as slowly as possible because that's like free money I can borrow by comparison. The APR on that is tiny, right? I'm very happy to borrow money at those rates, right? So loans are good sometimes, but you know, I got a friend that like has horrible credit, and he got a loan for a car, a used car, like less than 1% APR. It's nuts. At that point, why even bother like paying that off immediately, unless you just hate loans? But I kind of digress. This conversation is way off topic. I would say for the Monero room, but it's fine for a bit. Doug and Chill, do you have any other comments that you want to get across before we?
I think, yeah, we should wrap it because what is 7 hours or 7.5 or where are we? We had the whole Monero day.
Yeah, I guess it is 7.5 hours at this point. It's 3 minutes away from 7.5 hours. Isn't that nuts?
That's some dedication, Justin.
I know, and
I
he's
think
got.
I have my fill for the day. I'm gonna check out over here. But great job, Justin. This is amazing.
Have a good night, Justin. Thank you so much. You're awesome.
Good night, Chill. Good night, Doug. Good night, John. Good night, Jeffrey. Thanks everyone for joining. Obviously, there's quite a few people that had to leave already, given how long this has gone on for. But obviously, this has been very, very nice for us to have on Twitter. I think we will have more of these based off the success of these. I will say, if you are interested in participating more directly in the Monero community, it's super open, right? There's no company behind it. I'm just a random person. So there's room for really anybody to get involved and to participate. So I heavily encourage you to check out the Monero Reddit is probably the best way to get started initially, just to check in and say hi, follow the Monero official Twitter, and get the basic news. But we eventually want to see you on Matrix, just because that's where you get to have your full voice heard and to participate in the actual discussions. No one's ever going to ask you for money. No one's ever going to ask you for anything. We're not going to ask you to invest in anything, but we're just looking for people who are passionate in supporting a very, very critical privacy tool. And that's really what brings all of us here. So we appreciate everybody being here to have, an important part of the discussion today. We're very, very proud that this went so well. And we will catch you at some point in the future. So thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, Justin.